Thank you everyone for joining us. We have Scott Moore and Chris Marsh here from Esri, kicking off one of our last sessions of the day. If you would all like to, if you see anything of interest, or there's obviously lots of interest, but if you have questions to share throughout the discussion, please go ahead and get those on to Huva, and they can maybe attend to some of those midstream. And with that, I will let you two take it away. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. My name is Scott Moore. We're going to be talking with Esri. Chris Marsh is also with me. We have a lot of good information to share with you today. We're going to be talking about, field operations with our ArcGIS mobile apps and kind of some of the latest capabilities in these applications, because as you know, if you've been using the technology, they are always changing. And so just kind of want to get you updated with what the latest is, and then also talk a little bit about, some exciting things we're doing and we're seeing customers do with the technology as well. So with that, we're gonna get going. All right. So I just kind of want to get the current state of things out there. So here's the way that I look at the kind of the main tools that we have out there. We have ArcGIS Field Maps, which is kind of the combination of the collector application, explorer application, and tracker application. Survey 123 is our forms-based application, and Quick Capture is kind of our windshield survey, very built for fast data capture. We do have a couple of other applications that we plan on migrating into the Field Maps application, Workforce, as well as Navigator. We're not going to dive into those too much today because they're kind of still in process of getting those rolled into the Field Maps application. But also today we're going to talk about how we can use webhooks to do some integration as well. Now, with that being said, Chris Marsh is with me, and he is going to be available to answer questions as we're going through the presentation. So feel free in the Huva to log in, ask questions. Hopefully Chris can get those answered throughout. And maybe we'll have a little bit of time at the end too to either review those questions or answer some additional ones. All right, so what is the Field Maps application? As you can see, there's a couple of different aspects to it. There's the mobile applications available on Android and iOS, and then there's the companion web application for configuring it. So let's talk a little bit about the mobile application first. So kind of with the release, I think the latest release is June, but there's going to be one in December. We're kind of getting all the capabilities into one app. People asked us for a long time to say, well, why do you have all these different apps? Collector, Explorer, Navigator. Can't we just kind of combine them into a single application? And that's really where we're moving toward, which is great, I think, for a lot of people. They're seeing the value. And then in the meantime, a lot of the technology has changed since we first released Collector years ago. And trying to add new compelling capabilities into the application as well. So kind of the main things that we can do in the Field Map application is map viewing. So having very nice cartographic maps that we can update the data in real time or consume updated data in real time. We can search for a location or an address or features on the map. One of the things that we've recently added is support for indoor maps. So if you've heard about our ArcGIS Indoors, there's a lot more integration going on there for indoor positioning and things like that. That's kind of in the road ahead. But then there's also the ability to mark up maps, right? So like things like providing a markup tool, being able to freehand sketch lines and areas and markers and arrows and one thing that's really nice is you kind of just quickly draw a line, and if you happen to close it, it turns it into a polygon. So it's a really interesting way to be able to quickly annotate a map, and then you can share it to other people via like AirDrop or Bluetooth, an email or a text message to somebody else, and they can bring it up. Or you can even share it back to ArcGIS online if you have if you have publishing privileges within your ArcGIS Online or your ArcGIS Enterprise. In fact, Chris and I did a thing where we actually had a Python script where when people would submit that, we could run the script and actually read that markup and turn it into real features and store it in a real feature layer as well. So there's a lot of things that you can do with it, but it's a quick way. Great drawing tools for quickly marking up a map. And that was kind of a capability that was available in Explorer that wasn't available in Collector, and now it's in the Field Maps app. Being able to work with high quality, high accuracy GPSs, right? So we partner with other GNS vendors like Garmin and EOS and Bad Elf and Trimble and Juniper, all these things, and being able to capture centimeter level accuracy. So if you need high accuracy, this is a great tool to leverage, and you can integrate it right into your workflows and just have that higher accuracy of GPS. In terms of doing inspections, like we want to be able to support versioning, for example, or if you have multiple people in an area doing work on the same data, or branch versioning in an offline capability. So this is more the newer paradigm for things like utilities and stuff like that, or just the basic non-version editing, or if we want to do a feature inspection, maybe we're collecting a new feature, or we're updating attributes on existing, or we want to support just a one-to-many relationship where we've got an asset and we go and visit it several times. Maybe it's a once or twice a year, and we capture its information in a related table. We want to be able to support those sorts of workflows as well. And then Field Maps has kind of enabled this thing they call smart forms, not to be confused with the capabilities of Survey 123, but it's a lot stronger than what we had with just Collector, where we can do things like group fields or apply conditional visibility, have pick lists and required fields and read-only fields, stuff like that. That's been added into the editing process within Field Maps. Location tracking. So if anybody's heard about Tracker, this is a tool that allows, it was another application that we had that allowed you to, kind of run and keep track of your folks in the field, like where they are. Maybe it's a lone worker situation or something like that. We want to be able to see tracks of where people have been, all that sort of good stuff. Well, within the Field Maps mobile application, that technology for Tracker has been integrated into that application as well. So the only thing that you really need is that it used to be that you could get an ArcGIS Tracker add-on license, but it's actually included now if you're using a field worker user type. I think if you're using a creator user type, you still need to add the ArcGIS Tracker add-on for that. But it's a great way to kind of keep track of where people are and where you've had people out working. Regarding indoor mapping, I mentioned ArcGIS Indoors. The Field Maps application has been built to support our indoors information model via web maps and offline for map packages. So it's basically floor aware. So if we have buildings with multiple floors, it knows how to handle those sorts of things. And that's basically all I want to say about the indoor stuff. If you have questions about that, please reach out to us. App links. So there's one of the things that we've been doing for a number of years is being able to integrate our applications with each other. And one of the ways that we did that is via app links. So maybe we had an ArcGIS Explorer map for offline and it worked great, but when we wanted to, inspect something, we could launch a Survey 123 application. So now we can do additional capabilities in the Field Map application. So send a link to somebody that when they click on it, it opens a map or a map package on their device, or centers the map at a certain location, or it searches a map using a coordinate or a location or an attribute name. Or you can even instigate a data collection with a location and some sort of spatial reference and a collection of attributes. Update attributes, of an existing feature. You can pass those parameters in. So definitely take a look at the Field Maps help for how you can construct some of these app links. It's really easy to send these things as emails. We often will build them in in a webhook process where a link gets created and sent as an email. So all somebody has to do is click on it, and it gets them to where they need to be in the field maps application. Sorry, I didn't have the animation going there. So another thing that people, especially in enterprise, larger shops, larger IT shops, that want to talk about is mobile device management. And so one of some of the benefits are that we can, the IT shops can better manage the devices in the organization and improve some of the efficiency of deploying them. It makes it a lot easier to get the applications on the devices. But there's a couple things that I thought were really interesting capabilities that were added, making it possible to do these interesting things. For example, if we deploy an application on a device, you can automatically have like a portal URL key deployed with it, so that the user doesn't, launch the Field Maps app and have to say, "Oh, are you logging into ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise? And if so, what's your, what's the URL for the portal?" It's all managed from the agency. You don't have to like have your end users know what that URL is. The other thing, the big one that I think is actually really interesting is this app level VPN. So sometimes people have an ArcGIS Enterprise. It's behind the firewall, so it's not publicly accessible. And so if you were using Field Maps, you would have to, on your mobile device, you would have to connect to your agency's VPN, then run the application. But in this case, you can basically have it so that when you launch Field Maps, it automatically knows to connect to the VPN. And so just that application is connected to VPN, doing its work with your ArcGIS Enterprise behind the firewall. So it really does give your end users a nice experience when interacting with Field Maps on the device. So it's definitely an area where we've done some work, and we'll continue to improve that into the future. Some of the new capabilities that were in the June release, which is the latest release, there's some improvements in our smart form. So there's the switch input type. So you can see like the switch values is compliant and non-compliant. You see the structure information over here. You check it on, it's going to be compliant. Off, it's non-compliant. So it's like a yes/no type thing. But the user experience when this is the white area here is the authoring experience. This is what they see in the app. So it's just a little button that they can quickly toggle. So from a data entry piece, it's a nice improvement. One of the things that we didn't have, if you had, if you wanted to add an option for no value, so if you got a nullable field, instead of putting in a null, we want to actually say no value or something like that. We have this no value option. Various data collection and editing improvements. So, copying an existing feature, you can copy the location of a feature or copy the location and attributes of a feature. If you're authoring a line or an area, you can, as you see, you have a bunch of vertices that are streamed. Maybe you want to delete, all the points, or you want to, select a few points and allow for deleting all or deleting the selected points. So just improvements in the usability of that Field Maps mobile app in general. So regarding kind of the near term and the long term, we are, adding more and more capabilities to the quote unquote smart forms, the ability to calculate attribute values like with an arcade script, more on that, contingent values. Basically like if I, select one value, depending on what's selected, maybe there is another drop down that would be a different list based on what was selected previously. Other attribute rules, things that you can do now within ArcGIS Pro, basically making sure that those things become available into the Field Maps application. We're working still on integrating the workforce application, more indoor editing and positioning within, for ArcGIS indoors. And then regarding data collection, split and reshape of like polygons, and then, capturing orthometric heights. And then another thing for folks who work in, like departments of transportation, folks that use linear referencing, adding support for LRS for like roads and highways types of implementations. And then in the long term, we're still wanting to add the Navigator app in to this application as well for turn-by-turn directions. Geo triggers, things like, hey, if I'm in a zones where we can get notifications, things can happen when you're in or out of these zones. Just a number of capabilities that are a little bit further out. Even things like augmented reality and more support, even additional support for linear referencing. So that's kind of the mobile application. And what I'm going to do is, talk a little bit about, well, that's great. You've got this mobile application. How do we go about creating and configuring a field map for use in the mobile application? And so to do that, I've got a little video here, and I'm going to have to back it up for 1 second. Sorry. 250. Okay. And
in ArcGIS Online, there's a couple entry points to the Field Maps app. For a specific map that you own, you can click the Overflow menu and then click Open in Field Maps to open this map and configure it for use in the field. Alternatively, you can use the App Launcher to launch the entire app and see all the maps that you can configure. Here, you're brought to a browse screen where you can see your maps. In this case, I have 2 maps, wetlands water distribution and damage assessment. Since I'm an administrator in this case, I have the option to view all the maps that I have access to in the organization. I can click this and you can see some additional maps appear. I'm going to go ahead and select a couple of these. I'm actually going to hide these from the Field Maps mobile app. This allows me to hide maps that are either in progress or maybe were designed for other uses like dashboards, Experience Builder, or other apps in ArcGIS. In this case, we're going to be focused on the wetlands water distribution map. So I'm going to go ahead and open this map. Here, you're brought to the Overview tab. The Overview tab allows you to see information about your map. You can see the title, the owner, when it was last updated, its offline status, and if it's shared with anybody. Additionally, you have options to open in Map Viewer or in Map Viewer Classic. For today's demo, we're really focused on the Content tab and how to build a smart form. Here, when you click the Content tab, you get a list of layers, tables, and even the base map this map is using. You can actually use this button to add additional layers to your map if needed. For this example, we're going to be focused on the hydrant maintenance inspection table. We want to build a form to allow us to collect inspections out in the field. There's a couple ways to start building forms. The first way is by using this Convert pop-up button. This will take your existing fields in your pop-up that are editable and can be used in the form and immediately convert them into a usable form here. So here you can see that we've used the new map viewer to kind of group some of our fields in our pop-up, and those are being translated automatically to groups in the smart form here. You can see different fields are placed in here and whatnot. In this demo, we're going to be showing how you can actually build this form from scratch. So in this case, we're going to drag a new group over. We want to give this group a name. In this case, we're going to call it Inspection Details. Then we want to drag the 2 fields that are going to go into here. In this case, I'm going to look at the inspector. So we're going to select that and inspection date. And we can select multiple fields by holding Shift or Control or Command down, depending on your operating system. Next, we want to kind of configure these 2 fields. So for this one, we want to place some placeholder text reminding the user to enter their first and last name. We also want to require this field to make sure that it's filled out when the mobile user completes the form. Next, we're going to select the inspection date, and we want to require this field as well. Now we're going to add another form element to the canvas here. In this case, we want to add the flush required field. In this case, we want to update the display name to make it kind of a question, and we want to change this input type from a combo box to a switch. So here we're going to actually change the values so that yes is switched on and no is switched off. Next, we're going to require the switch because we want to make sure that the mobile worker always completes this field. Then we're going to add another group. So we're going to drag another form element over here. We're going to select this group and name it operation. We want this form element to only be displayed when a flush is required. So we're going to add a conditional visibility expression to this entire group. So we're going to look for the flush required field, which is down here, and we're going to use the domain name function and compare that to the value of yes. We're going to rename this expression to a flush required, save the name, and then click OK and save the expression. Next, we're going to drag 3 fields into this group. We're going to drag the pressure, PSI here. We're going to grab the flow duration and the flow rate. We're going to drag all 3 of them over here. In this case, we want to customize the pressure here. We want to make it required, and we want to change the placeholder value to something that they might enter. I'm going to do a similar thing for flow duration. Here we're actually going to change the description and make it duration of flow in minutes. And you can see the description is shown below the form element here. Finally, we're going to select flow rate. We're going to require this one as well. And we're going to indicate that the units in this case are gallons. Next, we're going to add our final group to the form here. And we're going to name this group maintenance. This is going to contain several form elements related to any kind of maintenance that must be performed. Here we want the state of the group to be collapsed by default. We're going to close this, and now we're going to basically add the rest of our fields except for the note and the asset grid. So we're going to drag all of these fields over. Notice how by default they're using combo box dropdowns. We want to change that to make it more user-friendly. So we're going to change the input type from combo box to radio buttons for all of these, and we're going to uncheck the no value option because these fields have 3 options by default, which one of them already includes kind of a no value option. So we're going to quickly go through, oops, make sure we change all these to radio buttons and uncheck that. And finally, we're going to add one more element to the form here. And that element is the notes field. So we're going to drag this all the way to the bottom. And because this could be a long field, we're going to change it from text input to text area. And notice that you can kind of get a visual indication here that it's a larger area to enter text. And that's pretty much it. So we're going to go ahead and save our form at this point. So right now it's saving this form into the web map itself. So now that this form has been saved, we're going to show how you can deploy this map to the field. So we're going to click the sharing tab. In here, the sharing indicates that this item is not shared. We're going to change that and share it with a specific group of workers. So we're going to change this from owner. I'm going to click edit group, and we're going to make this the hydrant inspectors. Click OK, click save. It's going to update the sharing for the service as indicated here, as well as the map. Down below here, you can see there's a link. You can use this link to share if you want to maybe text your workers or send it in an email, or you can provide this QR code, which can be scanned directly by the camera app or even inside the Field Maps app itself. And this will launch the app and take you directly to the map. So it's kind of streamlines some of the sign-in process. So now I've gone ahead and I've actually shared my iPhone screen here. I'm going to go ahead and launch the camera app and scan this QR code, tap open it in Safari. It's going to route me to my map. And you can see the features load, and you can see there's some hydrant features here. So let's zoom in on one of these and tap on it. I'm going to select it, and I want to add a new inspection for this hydrant. So let me scroll up, and you can see our form here. So we're prompted to fill out some information. Date, we're going to go with today. Notice how if I toggle flush required on, a new group appears below. If I turn it off, that group is removed. This is conditional visibility in action. So in this case, I'm going to say yes, it's required. I'm going to enter some of these values here and just kind of complete the form. Next, I'm going to expand the maintenance group here, and you can see the set of radio buttons. So let's go ahead and just check some of these to indicate that some of these things need to be performed on this hydrant. Bring it up to code. And finally, at the bottom, I can add notes. So I can say, like, this hydrant needs some work. Go ahead and submit the feature. And it's as simple as that. So that just shows you kind of the end-to-end workflow from creating a form to deploying it to the mobile app to filling out the form and submitting the feature. Now that we've seen how forms can be deployed to the field, let's take a look and see how forms can be used across the ArcGIS system. If we go back to content, we're going to look at the fire hydrant feature layer itself. Here, there's already been a form created. It's capturing information about the hydrant, about the location, and the ownership and history related to this hydrant. Let's see how this data can be collected in the map viewer. So here we're going to select Open in Map Viewer. Let's actually make this full screen. Now we're going to use the Edit widget. Click Add Feature. We're going to select New Active Fire Hydrant, and let's say we want to add one at this location. You can click. Here we're prompted to use Smart Form here. So we have the hydrant details group, we have the location group, and we have the ownership and history group, which was clefs by default. So we could fill this out and go ahead and submit our feature. This is one of the key distinguishing features of smart forms. They can be used across the system and are reusable. So Field Maps supports web maps and forms offline. You can actually configure many of the offline settings directly in the web app here. So let's circle back to the web app and take a look. You can select the offline tab here. At the top, you can toggle offline mode on or off. Additionally, you can navigate in and view all of your layers and confirm their offline status. In the case where one or more of these layers does not support offline, you have the option directly in the app here to enable sync or export tiles if available. Field Maps also supports generating pre-planned map areas. You can actually click Manage Areas, and this will launch the same experience that you see in ArcGIS Online to configure offline map areas. So everything is available within one app. You can configure settings for offline as well, such as when features and attachments should be delivered to the mobile app. And then finally, if you want to use side-loaded base maps, you can configure that setting here as well by selecting device will use tile package it already has and specifying the file name to look for on the device.
All right. So lots of good improvements in the field maps application. It's really coming along, especially since with the migration from collector to field maps. And I believe that the plan is still to deprecate collector at the end of the year in terms of formal support. It's not going to pull it off of your devices if you're still using it. So it just won't be getting new updates. So if you've got it already on the device, you're okay there. Okay, so let's change gears because we still have a lot to cover and talk about Survey 123. So we're going to talk about the kind of the latest version. It seems like Survey 123 gets almost a monthly update, maybe every couple months. But let's talk about some of these highlights. So regarding smart form features, there is a new address question, which I think is pretty amazing. This is, let's talk a little bit about entering addresses. So, it's a very common way to define the location of something. And you can see kind of an older version of a survey where, somebody might have to add an address, address line, a city line, a postal code, state, and, you might enter it incorrectly. You can see New York instead of New York and red lambs instead of redlands. The other thing about this is that some people, putting in an address is more important than, dropping a location on a map. So, we have these issues of inconsistencies, how people enter addresses or typos, or mapping, those addresses as well. So we have, come up with a new address question within Survey 123. And this really simplifies, the process. So instead of, having multiple fields, you can see I got a service address field. As I start to type, it's going to query a locator to get that address. It can get not only, the address validated, but it can give you back the, latitude and longitude, the location as well. And then we can extract all the bits and pieces, the city, the postal code, into their own fields. And so you type in the address and maybe they don't see it, but you're grabbing all those little bits and pieces and putting them in discrete fields as well. And then we can store the location as a point geometry as well. You can also use your own locator, right? So if you have that was showing probably using the ArcGIS Online World Locator, but if you're an agency that manages your own locator, then publish it. We can use that custom locator. It works in the survey web app, and it works in the survey desktop app. It does require that you have connectivity, right? So at this point in time, it doesn't support taking, if you're taking the field map app and wanting to use that address type and using a locator package or offline locator, it doesn't support that at this point. But I think a lot of times these type of surveys tend to be especially ones that people put out towards the public and stuff like that. And so a lot of those are web forms anyway. And so this is just a great way to, get from an address to the map without a big effort or post-processing. And we're getting some, upfront validation and we can store the quality of the geocoding score and stuff like that. If we need to go back and, say, well, it only had a score of 50, maybe we should double check that. I'm going to share this PowerPoint as a PDF, and you'll be able to see some of these, tools, these links to how do you work with those resource, how do you do address, good ways to use addresses in the future. Dynamic list. I think this one is spectacular. I'm just gonna demonstrate it here real quick. I got just a really quick video. So let's just pop that in and off we will go.
So in this form, as you can see, the first question asks me to enter the name of my team. Could be maybe California Task Force 1 or California Task Force 2. Then I would complete the information and send it. All good. Let's go back here. Now I don't belong to any of the groups in this list. I actually belong to Arizona Task Force 3. So let's enter that information and send the data. The next time I come Now Arizona Task Force 3 is part of the list. How is this possible? I didn't publish the form updating the list. Well, this is possible because this is a dynamic list. It's a list that is being populated from a feature layer. We're doing a live query against that feature layer, and we are populating the choices based on that query. You can use dynamic lists in both the web and the field application. The XLS form syntax to author this type of lists is shown in this slide. Is actually more powerful than I demonstrated in that you can build dynamic queries that include both attribute and spatial parameters in them. Brett Stokes.
So dynamic lists, pretty sweet capability. I've been asking the Survey 123 team for that sort of thing, and I know our customers have too. Being able to create a selection that's based on querying like a feature service works really well for large lists and lists that change frequently, like you saw there. Somebody added a new other, and we want it to show up in that list. So great new capability that was just added. Like I said, including this, so you'll be able to go back and look at some of these links in the Esri community and the help topics on how to get at that. Added some capabilities for conditional visibility rules. There's a number of them, but one that I really wanted to highlight is we have this body Esri visible parameter. It's very similar to the relevance. Relevance, you can hide questions based on a relevant expression. When they're hidden because of relevant, though, if you've written something in a box, like if you've provided user input, if it's no longer relevant, then it doesn't put the data. That data doesn't get entered. But if you did put some data in and then it gets hidden because of body Esri visible, that data will still, that user input will still stay. So it just gives you some flexibility if you still want to capture that value, even though it gets hidden, maybe after a certain point. It's supported in both the mobile and the field apps. Let's talk a little bit about field data collection. This is pretty amazing. So in the field app inbox, one of the capabilities that many of us have been asking for with the inbox is being able to get access to the attachments that we've sent. And one thing, if you use the inbox, you know that you go and capture a feature and you take some pictures. You go to download it into the inbox later. The images did not come, so you couldn't update them or view them in the inbox. And so with this latest release, these images are downloaded on demand. Obviously, you're going to need to have a level of connectivity. It's not, if it hasn't been downloaded, you're going to need to be connected to grab that. And so that's not where we're stopping with that. If you had other media files or signatures, we want to be able to do those things as well. But I know that images is a big one. Another thing is added was better annotation tools. So if you want to annotate some maps or photos or diagrams in the field app, and then send this annotated media to your ArcGIS platform as attachments. This is kind of added in there, and there's an enhanced improvements, so improved tools for navigation like the pan and zoom in you're seeing here, and a better quality output. And so there are more annotation tools planned for early 22. This, the Survey 123 team is always looking for early adopter feedback. So, if you're interested, please join the Survey 123 early adopter community. A lot of times they release stuff like that address type was released, quite a while ago, kind of for early adopters to test out. So a lot of that information comes into the early adopter community. It's a great way to interact with the Survey 123 team. Online surveys. One of the things that's been huge with Survey 123, especially since the pandemic, is that Survey 123 web surveys have been pretty commonly used by customers for just reaching out to the public. So obviously, public-facing forms, especially, we need good accessibility conformance, and so we've done a number of accessibility enhancement, keyboard navigation, screen readers, And then we've also, had an updated accessibility report, as well as a blog about best practices for accessibility. Other things in terms of the Survey 123 web designer, there's been kind of the list of what you can do in the Survey 123 Connect desktop application using an XLS form versus the web designer. And that list keeps narrowing all the time. So now in the web designer, there's, being able to do calculations or hidden questions, read-only mode, changing the survey title within the design, setting up input mask. These are things that were not possible in the web form, authoring them in the web form. So the web designer has really been improved. And then finally, for developers, we've got a whole website now, in the developers.arcgis.com/survey123, where you can find information about Python scripts using the Python API to perform common Survey 123 tasks like generate a report, or there's the ArcGIS Web App API for JavaScript that allows you, if you're building custom web applications, to easily embed a Survey 123 survey in there, not as an iframe, but actually embedded within your website, and interact with it with that Web App API. So that's all documented within that environment as well. So it's another great addition. So Survey 123 just continues to grow as well. Here's some additional blogs and documentation on the developer experience. So just final thing about Survey 123 in terms of other important things to know. If you're using Survey 123 Connect or the Field app on Mac OS, 3.13 will be the last release with support for Mac OS for Survey 123 Connect and the Field app. And then there's some other resources out there that you might want to take a look at as well. So finally, I want to jump over into Quick Capture because we are moving right along here. And really, Quick Capture is a big button app that's meant for doing fast data collection, just tapping a button and automatically capturing, a point or a line or a polygon without a lot of user input. So, what do? We have some buttons in the application that are configured to put data in a layer. The features, based on, the geometry type and the attributes that you have. And the features are sent to your ArcGIS feature layer. So we can, have like a tree that is, of type coniferous or type, deciduous, and a different button for each, and it automatically will calculate, depending on which button you push, it'll automatically, calculate the type as coniferous or deciduous, depending on which button you push. Or and then you might also have, you can actually do maybe type and condition. So you might have a healthy coniferous and a unhealthy coniferous, and a healthy deciduous and an unhealthy deciduous. And then you can even prompt for, user input when you hit that button to say, hey, what's the height? And then they could type that in really quick. Obviously, the more things that you ask the user to do, the slower things will, the collection experience can be. But there's a lot of power in this. It's like I said, if you're doing a lot of quick collection, we've had people doing aerial surveys, for example, where they're counting lots of things, from the air, or windshield surveys. You're driving down the road, and you can capture these things at the same time. So if you're trying to capture a line or a path that you're driving down, and then as you're driving down the path, quickly grab that tree, then you just hit that tree button and the point is grabbed from the GPS on the device, but you're still collecting the line at the same time. So if you haven't used Quick Capture, definitely take a look at this great tool. So how do we get going? Well, you can create your feature layers in Desktop or ArcGIS Online, or Survey 123. You can then go into the Quick Capture builder, and build a project with it, and then you download it onto your device, and then as you send data back, we can view and analyze it. That's a pretty common workflow for creating a project from an existing data set. You can also create project templates and deploy those as well. And then you just basically pick an existing template like that Esri has, or other ones that you may have created for your organization. And then you download the project and you're off and running. So from a licensing perspective, it's included for field workers, creators, and GIS professionals. If you just have an editor user type, you can purchase a quick capture add-on. This is pretty similar to field maps as well. You need to be a field worker or creator, or you can be an editor and add that one app on if your editors just need that one app. The nice thing about being a field worker or creator is you can use any of your license for all of those mobile apps. So here's some of the common use cases. Obviously, rapid damage assessments, or crop scouting if you're in ag, or in transportation you're doing some at-speed inventory, like driving down the road, like I mentioned before. So or invasive species, you're out looking for noxious weeds, that sort of stuff. This is a great tool for that, or for your folks that are doing that work. Some of the stuff that's been added is being able to have multiple project user inputs. So the user starts the day, they might say, hey, I'm on this team, and I'm in this district, and I'm, this is my cost center. And now everything that they capture throughout the day, those attributes will automatically be tagged to that. And maybe the next day they're on a different team or in a different district. So you kind of fire it up, you enter in that information prior to doing your collection, and those inputs they populate the data. So pretty cool. Another thing that's just been recently added is the idea of one record with multiple photos. Before, you could only capture one photo with per observation. In this case, you can do, I believe, up to 5 photos. So you capture something, and then you can maybe capture different angles of whatever you're interacting with from multiple perspectives. And of course, the photos can be required or optional. Another thing that was added was oriented imagery, and I've got a really short video on that, so I'm gonna show that really quick. But I think they'll cover it well. Let's just do that.
Now, to see what value-oriented imagery brings to the table, let's have a look at a quick demonstration. In this demonstration, I'm going to use oriented imagery collected with Quick Capture to support an inspection workflow from my desktop. You are looking at an application built with Experience Builder. It allows me to navigate through different streetlights that I need to inspect. By clicking on the map, the oriented imagery widget in Experience Builder automatically identifies any photo, any oriented imagery photo I may have taken with Quick Capture that shows this particular streetlight. In fact, you can see that the location I highlighted in the map is also highlighted in the photo. Using the navigation tool, I can flip the perspective using other photos that represent that particular asset. Note that the field of view of every photo is highlighted in the map, and it's dynamic. If I zoom in here in my photo and I look to the right or I look to the left, the field of view in the map is synchronized accordingly. Note as well that I can highlight points in the map and see their corresponding location in the photo. I can do it the other way around. I can also click on the photo to highlight the specific location in the map that represents that green dot. After doing my inspection, looking at the photos of the streetlight, I can use back the table and say, well, it's all good. So I change the attribute. Now I can look to the next inspection point. So in this case, I'm going to look at this particular point. I'm going to again click on the map, and you can see that I have a photo. I could repeat this process again and again and inspect all the streetlights in the city using photos collected from the field. Next, I will demonstrate how you can configure your Quick Capture projects to collect oriented imagery. First of all, you need buttons in your project that collect photos. So I just selected these 4 buttons, went into Data, and then I'm going to enable Take Photo. And very important, you are going to select this option, Use the photo location when you store this particular observation. Now, once you have done this, you have enabled photos with this option. What you're going to do is you're going to enable oriented imagery on the layer where the attachments are being stored. So for this, I'm going to go into the Manage Project Layers option at the top. I'm going to select the point layer with the attachments and say Enable Oriented Imagery. This is going to do multiple things. First of all, it's going to add a bunch of fields to your feature layer. So if I go to Data again for this button, you will see that at the bottom we have new fields: acquisition date, camera height, near distance, vertical field of view, horizontal field of view, camera pitch, camera roll, and others. You can see that they all have a device variable that is going to auto-calculate the values. So you don't have to worry about these at all. But these are the fields that the oriented imagery widget in Experience Builder requires to enable that interactive experience. On top of this, we have created an oriented imagery catalog item in the folder where you store this quick capture project. This is the oriented imagery catalog that tools like ArcGIS Pro and Experience Builder require to enable the interactive experience.
Okay, so finally, there's a number of other great enhancements, and I'll leave back some resources for you to look at. But just like we mentioned in the Field Maps application, location tracking has been added into the Quick Capture app as well, so keeping track of fields crews. And there is plans as well to add the location tracking capability within the Survey 123 early next year. So basically that location tracking capability will be available in the Quick Capture Survey 123 and Field Maps application. So yeah, if you want to check out questions, you want to join the beta program for Quick Capture, feel free to reach out. Here is some more resources that I will share that you can take a look at. And finally, I really want to talk about the kind of automation of some of these tools, because I think that there's some great capabilities that you can integrate these mobile apps with other business systems. And that's really what brings up some amazing value in these applications. And Chris is going to talk a little bit about a use case working with some customers to do using Microsoft Power Automate and Survey 123 and integrating with other things like email and Microsoft Teams. And I will pass it over to him.
Thanks, Scott. So let me share my screen here real quick. And hopefully everything is working. So yeah, there's a couple different workflows that I want to show. First, I think something that's super common that we see sometimes is that we have workflows where you need like an approval process. And so in this case, we're going to submit a survey and we're going to start an approval process, and we're going to pass some information through for people to do that. And then as it moves through the process, we're also going to update the data to sort of show like where it is in the process. So in this case, I've got a survey. I'm going to put in a project number, and this is going to be this. I'm not going to fill the whole thing out because it's super long, and we're going to put in a location somewhere that's preferably in the US, and we will submit that. And on this submission, what will happen is that it's going to build an approval, and this is going to come through Microsoft Teams. It also will email you. But what happened is in my Teams, I got an approval process, and it also created, through part of that process, I set it up to put an attachment in here so that I could link it out and sort of see what it is. So I'm going to click on this, and this will open up my dashboard. I'm going to go back here quick, and I'm going to hit initiate. So this will start the approval process. And so when I linked on that, I'm using a dashboard and some URL parameters, which actually filters out that specific record. And so you can see, this is the record that I just put in, and this is the awesome line that I drew, and it sort of shows me, how many projects I have in this sort of process. When I did the initiation, it also kicked off a separate approval where I have a final approval status where I can say, is it completely done or not? And so if I say, yep, this is done, I'm going to approve this, then what will happen is it's going to update the data. And so instead of being 35.7 initiated, when I refresh this will actually show that that number has changed and the review complete has gone higher. So it's actually updated the feature service based on that whole approval process, and it's all done through webhooks. And so in this case, I'm showing Power Automate, and there's these different tools that you can add to it. We've got one specifically for Survey 123, and then there's these approval ones. We're using some HTTP ones to handle editing the data, and then setting up other approvals, and then again editing it to say that it's been complete based on this. And so this is just an interesting way to use webhooks to update your data and make it seamless for the users out there. But other times, we may want to notify people that something is happening. And so there's multiple webhook platforms that we support. So Power Automate's one of them. That's with Microsoft. Integromat is another one. And this one is a review process where, again, this is reviewing, but based on some of the choices, I might want to send a report. And so we watch a survey based on some of the values by filtering. We send different emails, and then if those two things are true in our filter, so this is equal to yes and this is equal to yes, then we want to actually create a report, go get that report from ArcGIS Online, and then attach that as a file and send that off. So there's a lot of different ways that we can, do things, but it's just a nice way to automate some of those processes as we go. One of the customers that I've worked with at the municipality of Anchorage, they created a property summary report, and they're doing sort of that same option to send an email report of your property. So you just go onto their web map viewer, and they configured the pop-up to actually pass the parcel view through. So you can say, I'd like to get an email of my property report. It opens up Survey 123, passes in the parcel ID, you submit your email, and then it goes and sends a report to you based on the parcel that you selected. And so just an interesting way for you to take a look at using automating some things with webhooks. There's a lot of different use cases for it. We've seen, I'll show one other one real quick here. I think I got 1 more minute. And that is the ability to look within like a certain area. And so you can, this is not the right one.
Basically, based on the survey location,
Yep.
check to see if there's a polygon, what polygon you fall in, and different. You send the email to a different person depending on like an area of responsibility.
Yep. So in this case, we do a spatial query passing the geometry through, get the information back, and then based on that, attach who it goes to. So there's some different ways that you can do that with area of interest. So there's a lot of different ways that we can set those up, but webhooks just are a wonderful tool to expand on these mobile workflows.
Yep. So we are out of time. Yeah, you guys can continue to post questions in the Q&A. I think we've answered most of them throughout the session, and we are more than happy. I know that the closing session is starting now, but we are more than happy to sit on and answer further questions for a few more minutes if anybody has additional questions. One question that came up, Chris, was, can the annotation tool in field maps allow the user to select and delete specific graphic elements? He said that I know the old tool only allowed removal of the last graphic.
I'm not sure. We have to check on that one.
Yeah, that's what I said basically. So we'll get back with you, Dan. And yeah, I think you answered most of the other questions. So with that, I mean, we definitely appreciate everybody's time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Scott and Chris, for joining us today. That was a really great session. For anyone still plugged in, if you want to go in and update that Q&A, that'll be open for the duration of the conference. So yeah, thanks both of you for that great input.